The quantum communications array crackled with a desperation that transcended species and technological barriers. Captain Marcus Reyes leaned forward, his cybernetic eye filtering and analyzing the incoming transmission with inhuman precision. The holographic display flickered, revealing a mosaic of alien data, fragmented, urgent, and unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. 3 standard galactic weeks earlier, the Zorn Collective had been the most advanced civilization in the known universe. Their technological prowess was legendary, their military might considered insurmountable. Entire star systems had trembled at the mere mention of their name. Now those same systems were nothing more than cosmic dust, consumed by a force that defied all known principles of warfare and existence. The transmission bore the digital signature of High Coordinator Vexnera, leader of the Zorn Central Command. Where once such a communication would have been a declaration of conquest or superiority, now it was a raw plea for survival. Scattered fragments of data told a terrifying story. The Void Swarm had emerged from the dark spaces between galaxies, a force of consumption that devoured not just planets, but entire civilizational infrastructures. Marcus watched as the holographic display reconstructed the last moments of the Zorn's outer colony worlds. Massive biomechanical constructs, living ships that were part organism, part machine, consumed entire planetary surfaces. They didn't just destroy, they integrated. Entire cities were broken down at the molecular level, their constituent materials absorbed into the ever-expanding mass of the Void Swarm. The initial Zorn defense had been nothing short of spectacular. Their most advanced weapon systems, capable of splitting atoms and manipulating gravitational fields, had been deployed with surgical precision. Entire fleets of ships that could crack planets had been thrown into the conflict. And yet, they had been consumed as easily as a child might crush a sandcastle. What made the Void Swarm truly terrifying was its adaptive intelligence. Traditional warfare relied on predictable patterns, attack vectors, defensive formations, strategic retreats. The Swarm knew no such limitations. It learned. It evolved. Each encounter made it stronger, more integrated, more impossible to defeat. 17 civilizations had already fallen. 17 advanced cultures, each with millennia of technological development, reduced to raw material in a cosmic feeding frenzy. The Zorn were the last advanced civilization standing, and they were losing. The final transmission contained coordinates that made Marcus's enhanced neural network pause. The Zorn were directing their last hope toward a small, seemingly insignificant star system on the galactic rim, Earth, a planet that most advanced civilizations had long dismissed as primitive, unremarkable, barely worth a footnote in galactic archives. "Computer," Marcus called out, his voice calm despite the magnitude of the incoming data. "Run comprehensive analysis. Cross-reference Zorn transmission with our historical xenological databases." The ship's artificial intelligence, a complex network that blended quantum computing with adaptive learning algorithms, began its work. Holographic displays erupted around Marcus, showing centuries of human exploration, conflict, and unexpected technological leaps. The Zorn hadn't chosen Earth by accident. Their transmission contained subtle markers, mathematical sequences, quantum encryption patterns that suggested a deeper understanding. They knew something about humanity that most galactic civilizations had overlooked. Humans were not just survivors. They were innovators. Every major conflict in human history had been met with unprecedented adaptation. When conventional methods failed, humanity invented entirely new approaches. They didn't just solve problems. They transformed the very nature of the challenges they faced. The ship's AI completed its analysis. A series of probability matrices appeared, each more startling than the last. The chances of human intervention succeeding where 17 advanced civilizations had failed, 0.02%. The potential for unexpected strategic approaches, 97.8%. Marcus allowed himself a slight smile. Those were the kind of odds humans lived for. The distress call was more than a request for help. It was an invitation to show the universe exactly what humanity was capable of becoming. And the universe was about to receive its answer. The underground command center beneath Cheyenne Mountain pulsed with a controlled intensity that bordered on electricity. Admiral Catherine Blake stood at the center of a holographic war room, her weathered hands clasped behind her back as she studied the Zorn transmission. Around her, a carefully assembled team of humanity's brightest minds worked with a precision that would have made military strategists of previous centuries weep with admiration. Dr. Robert Henderson, the lead strategic analyst, manipulated three-dimensional projections of the void swarm's known attack patterns. His fingers danced across holographic interfaces, each movement revealing layers of complexity that most would find incomprehensible. "They're not just a military force," he muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. "They're a complete systemic assimilation mechanism." To Blake's left, Major Samuel Rodriguez, a veteran of the Mars conflict and specialist in adaptive warfare, studied the transmission with a predatory focus. His cybernetic eye, a remnant of the brutal solar system conflicts, scanned data at rates that would overwhelm organic perception. "This isn't a request for help," he said suddenly. "This is an opportunity." The room fell silent. Blake turned, her steel-gray eyes catching the holographic light. "Explain." Rodriguez brought up a series of historical projections, 17 advanced civilizations, 17 complete defeats. Every known galactic culture approached this threat with conventional warfare. Linear thinking. Predictable defensive strategies. He paused, a slight smile playing at the corner of his mouth. "We're not every known galactic culture." The command center was a testament to human innovation. Unlike the hierarchical military structures of most advanced civilizations, this was an ecosystem of expertise. Quantum physicists sat alongside veteran soldiers. Xenopsychologists worked in perfect sync with artificial intelligence experts. Each person represented a node in a living, breathing network of problem-solving. Dr. Elena Martinez, head of xenobiological research, stepped forward. Her holographic display showed microscopic analyses of the void swarm's biological structure. "They're not just a military force," she explained. "They're a form of adaptive life that consumes and integrates. Traditional defensive mechanisms won't work because they learn and evolve faster than any known biological or mechanical system." Blake's mind was already several steps ahead. She understood something the Zorn transmission didn't say. Something between the lines of their desperate plea. This wasn't about saving the Zorn. This was about testing humanity's true potential. "We've been preparing for this moment our entire history," Blake said quietly. The room listened. Every person present knew exactly what she meant. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to transform limitations into opportunities. Every major conflict in human history, from global wars to solar system colonization, had been characterized by unexpected adaptability. Where other civilizations saw obstacles, humans saw puzzles to be solved. Major Rodriguez pulled up historical combat simulations, the room filled with holographic representations of human military innovation. The guerrilla tactics that defeated technologically superior enemies. The quantum communication networks that emerged from seemingly primitive technologies. The biological and mechanical hybrid systems that redefined the very concept of warfare. "They chose us deliberately," Dr. Henderson interjected. His fingers continued to dance across the holographic interface, revealing complex probability matrices. 17 advanced civilizations, 17 complete failures. "And they come to us." Blake nodded. "Because we're unpredictable." The implications hung in the air. The Zorn didn't just need a military intervention. They needed a fundamental reimagining of conflict itself. Outside the mountain, the first stages of mobilization were already underway. Manufacturing centers across Earth and its colonies shifted into high gear. This wasn't just a military response. It was a total societal commitment. Every sector would contribute. Every resource would be optimized. The human race was going to war. and they were going to redefine what war meant. As the holographic displays continued to pulse with incoming data, Admiral Catherine Blake allowed herself the smallest of smiles. The universe was about to learn something fundamental about humanity. We don't just survive. We transform. The massive shipyards of Luna Prime gleamed like a metallic constellation against the starlit backdrop of space. Major Jack Armstrong walked the launch deck, his augmented body moving with a fluidity that blurred the line between human and machine. Around him, the most advanced fleet in human history prepared for its most critical mission. These were not traditional spacecraft. They were living systems of technological innovation that defied every known principle of galactic military design. The Horizon-class carriers represented the pinnacle of human adaptive engineering. Each vessel was a modular marvel, capable of reconfiguring its entire structural integrity within microseconds. Specialized drone bays could spawn thousands of microcraft, each one a precision instrument of warfare that could operate independently or as a collective neural network. Lieutenant Samantha Rodriguez oversaw the final calibrations of her squadron's lead craft. Her neural interface, a delicate web of quantum-linked processors, merged seamlessly with the ship's core systems. Where alien militaries saw rigid command structures, humans saw a battlefield as a dynamic, ever-changing ecosystem of possibility. Dr. Michael Chen, the lead systems architect, explained the core philosophy to a group of visiting Zorn observers. Traditional warfare is about control, he said, his holographic displays showing complex algorithmic patterns. We approach conflict as a living, breathing organism. Our ships don't just fight. They learn. They adapt. The Zorn diplomats struggled to comprehend what they were seeing. Each human vessel contained multiple redundant systems that could spontaneously reorganize. Quantum communication networks allowed for instantaneous tactical adjustments. Biological-mechanical hybrid systems blurred the line between organic intuition and computational precision. In the quantum fabrication chambers, entire squadrons took shape with mind-bending speed. Nano-assembly lines worked at molecular levels, creating craft that could transform their fundamental structure mid-battle. Weapon systems incorporated principles that most galactic civilizations would consider theoretical at best. Orbital defense platforms represented another marvel of human innovation. Unlike static defensive structures, these were mobile ecosystems of defensive and offensive capabilities. Each platform could spawn defensive drones, redirect energy signatures, and even camouflage itself using advanced metamaterial technologies. Major Armstrong watched as a new squadron of deep space interceptors completed their final assembly. Each craft was a marvel of distributed intelligence. Their AI systems didn't just follow pre-programmed protocols. They learned, predicted, and innovated in real time. We're not building a military, Dr. Chen explained to the bewildered Zorn observers. We're creating a living, breathing response mechanism. The human approach was fundamentally different from any known military strategy in the galaxy. Where other civilizations saw warfare as a linear progression of attack and defense, humans viewed it as a complex, adaptive system. Every technological innovation was a potential strategic advantage. Biological augmentation played a crucial role. Soldiers like Armstrong weren't just enhanced, they were integrated. Nano-neural networks allowed for unprecedented levels of bodily and technological adaptation. A human soldier could interface directly with ship systems, becoming part of a larger, more complex operational intelligence. The quantum communication network that linked the human fleet was perhaps the most revolutionary aspect. Traditional faster-than-light communication relied on predetermined channels and predictable transmission methods. The human network was a living, breathing organism of information exchange. Lieutenant Rodriguez demonstrated the system's capabilities to her Zorn counterparts. A tactical simulation showed how individual craft could share computational resources, tactical insights, and strategic predictions instantaneously. It wasn't just communication. It was a collective intelligence that could respond faster than any centralized command structure. As the final preparations completed, Major Armstrong looked out over the launch bay. This wasn't just a military mobilization. It was humanity's declaration to the universe, a promise that when faced with an impossible challenge, they would not just respond. They would redefine the very nature of the conflict. The Void Swarm was about to encounter something it had never seen before, a species that didn't just fight to survive, but fought to transform everything it touched. The quantum bridge between human consciousness and machine intelligence pulsed with an energy that defied traditional understanding of warfare. Lieutenant Samantha Rodriguez sat perfectly still, her neural interface creating a symbiotic link with her spacecraft that transcended any known technological boundary. Around her, the first wave of the human fleet represented chaos theory made manifest. Each vessel was an ecosystem of innovation, with artificial intelligence systems that learned and adapted in microseconds. The ship's core processors were not just computational engines. They were living, breathing analytical networks that could predict, adapt, and transform faster than any known galactic military system. Dr. Elena Martinez watched from the research vessel, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that tracked the fleet's quantum entanglement patterns. The human approach to military technology was fundamentally different from anything the Zorn had ever encountered. Where other civilizations saw rigid technological hierarchies, humans saw an infinite landscape of possibility. It's not about the individual components, she explained to the Zorn observation team. It's about how those components communicate, adapt, and evolve. The fleet's communication network was a living organism. Each ship could redistribute computational resources instantaneously, sharing tactical insights, predictive algorithms, and strategic calculations at speeds that would overwhelm most artificial intelligence systems. It wasn't just a network, it was a collective intelligence that could respond to threats before they fully manifested. Major Jack Armstrong monitored the system's deeper layers. The neural interfaces weren't just communication tools, they were adaptive learning systems that merged human intuition with computational precision. A soldier's battlefield experience, emotional intelligence, and split-second decision-making became part of the ship's core operational matrix. Quantum fluctuation dampeners allowed human craft to move in ways that defied traditional physics. Ships could instantaneously redistribute energy, alter their molecular structure, and redirect momentum with a fluidity that seemed almost organic. Where alien militaries saw fixed attack vectors, humans saw a battlefield as a fluid, ever-changing canvas. Lieutenant Rodriguez's consciousness merged with her ship's systems. She wasn't controlling the craft. She was becoming part of it. Predictive algorithms anticipated potential threats. Tactical subroutines analyzed millions of potential engagement scenarios in milliseconds. The line between human and machine blurred into a new form of intelligence. The Zorn observation team struggled to comprehend what they were witnessing. Their most advanced technological systems were hierarchical, with clear boundaries between biological and mechanical components. The human approach demolished those boundaries entirely. Dr. Michael Chen demonstrated the fleet's adaptive capabilities. A holographic display showed how individual craft could spontaneously reorganize, sharing computational resources, tactical insights, and strategic predictions. Entire squadrons could reconfigure their operational matrices in response to emerging threats, creating complex tactical patterns that would be impossible for a centralized command structure to generate. "We don't fight with technology," Chen explained. "We fight with living, breathing systems of innovation." Biological augmentation played a crucial role in this technological symphony. Soldiers like Armstrong weren't just enhanced, they were integrated. Nano-neural networks allowed for unprecedented levels of bodily and technological adaptation. A human could interface directly with ship systems, becoming part of a larger, more complex operational intelligence. The quantum communication network that linked the human fleet was perhaps the most revolutionary aspect. Traditional faster-than-light communication relied on predetermined channels and predictable transmission methods. The human network was a living, breathing organism of information exchange. As the fleet prepared for its first encounter with the Void Swarm, something extraordinary was taking shape. This wasn't just a military force. It was a collective intelligence that could learn, adapt, and transform faster than any known technological system in the galaxy. The universe was about to learn a fundamental lesson about human potential. Warfare was no longer about destruction. It was about continuous, relentless innovation. Space erupted in a symphony of destruction that defied every known principle of galactic warfare. The leading edge of the Void Swarm approached like a cancerous membrane of darkness, consuming everything in its path. Massive biomechanical constructs that had devoured 17 advanced civilizations stretched across multiple light years, a nightmare of adaptive consumption that knew no mercy, no limitation. Lieutenant Samantha Rodriguez gripped her neural interface, her consciousness merging with her spacecraft in a moment of perfect synchronicity. Around her, the human fleet moved like liquid mercury, not a rigid formation, but a living, breathing organism of tactical possibility. Incoming primary wave, her ship's artificial intelligence reported, its voice a calm modulation of computational precision. Probability of standard defensive tactics, 0.03% effectiveness. Rodriguez didn't respond. She didn't need to. The first wave of Void Swarm assault craft approached with a predatory intelligence that had consumed entire civilizations. Their attack patterns were mathematically perfect, a series of converging vectors designed to overwhelm and integrate any defensive system. They had never encountered humans before. Major Jack Armstrong watched from the command vessel, his augmented vision tracking multiple simultaneous engagement scenarios. Where traditional military doctrine would call for concentrated defensive positioning, the human fleet did something entirely unexpected. They scattered. But this wasn't retreat. This was transformation. Individual spacecraft began to shift their molecular structures, quantum dampeners allowing for movement that defied traditional physics. Some ships compressed their mass, becoming nearly invisible to conventional scanning systems. Others expanded, creating complex holographic decoys that absorbed and redirected energy signatures. The Void Swarm's initial assault passed through what appeared to be the human fleet, only to discover they had struck nothing but adaptive illusions. Initiating counter-resonance protocol, Rodriguez murmured, her neural link pushing computational boundaries. Specialized drones, each one a marvel of miniaturized engineering, began to deploy. They weren't traditional weapons. They were precision instruments of systemic disruption. Quantum entanglement generators created localized fields that interfered with the Void Swarm's collective intelligence. Molecular disruptors targeted the fundamental communication networks that allowed the swarm to function as a unified entity. Dr. Elena Martinez watched from the research vessel, her hands dancing across holographic interfaces. They're not just a collective, she explained to the stunned Zorn observers. They're a singular organism, and organisms can be systematically disrupted. The human response was nothing short of biological warfare at a quantum level. Where the Void Swarm expected linear conflict, they encountered a multidimensional attack that targeted their most fundamental systems of cohesion. Entire squadrons of human craft began to move in patterns that seemed impossible. They weren't just avoiding damage. They were actively reshaping the battlefield. Energy dissipation fields created localized zones of computational confusion. Adaptive camouflage systems made individual craft shift between visibility and near-complete invisibility. They're rewriting the fundamental rules of engagement, a Zorn tactical analyst whispered, watching in disbelief. Major Armstrong's voice cut through the communication network. Concentrate on systemic disruption. Target their collective intelligence. The human fleet wasn't fighting to destroy. They were fighting to fundamentally alter the Void Swarm's ability to function as a unified entity. Quantum communication networks allowed instantaneous tactical adjustments, where a traditional military would require hours of strategic recalibration. The human fleet could transform its entire operational matrix in milliseconds. As the first engagement reached its crescendo, something became terrifyingly clear to the Void Swarm. This was not a battle. This was a complete reimagining of conflict itself. The research vessel hung in the cold vacuum of space like a cathedral of human innovation. Inside, Dr. Elena Martinez stood before a holographic display that pulsed with the most complex biological analysis ever attempted in galactic history. The Void Swarm was not just an enemy. It was a puzzle waiting to be solved. Dr. Michael Chen worked alongside Martinez, his augmented neural interfaces connecting to a massive quantum computing network. Surrounding them, a team of the most brilliant minds humanity had ever assembled worked with a singular purpose: understanding the fundamental nature of the most destructive force in the known universe. It's not a military, Martinez explained to the Zorn research delegation. It's a living system of consumption and integration. The holographic display revealed layers of complexity that defied traditional biological understanding. The Void Swarm wasn't just a collective of organisms. It was a single, planet-spanning intelligence that could adapt at the molecular level. Each consumed civilization added to its computational matrix, allowing it to learn and evolve with terrifying speed. Major Jack Armstrong reviewed the initial battle data, his cybernetic eye processing information at rates that would overwhelm organic perception. The first engagement had revealed something crucial. The Void Swarm had weaknesses. They were just incredibly difficult to exploit. Systemic communication is their primary strength, Dr. Chen noted, manipulating holographic representations of molecular structures. But it's also their most significant vulnerability. The human approach was fundamentally different from any previous attempts to combat the swarm. Where other civilizations saw an unstoppable force, humans saw a complex biological system with exploitable fracture points. Lieutenant Samantha Rodriguez interfaced with the research systems, her neural link allowing her to process vast amounts of tactical and biological data simultaneously. The battle recording showed something extraordinary. The Void Swarm's adaptive capabilities were not infinite. They had patterns, predictable responses hidden beneath their seemingly chaotic nature. Dr. Martinez's team began developing a multi-layered attack strategy. Quantum viruses that could target the swarm's collective communication networks. Psychological warfare algorithms designed to create computational dissonance. Weapons that would attack the very fundamental communication structures that allowed the swarm to function as a unified entity. We're not just fighting, Martinez explained to the stunned Zorn observers. We're performing surgical precision on a galactic scale. The research revealed the Void Swarm's most critical weakness. Its adaptive intelligence was both its greatest strength and its most significant vulnerability. To adapt, it needed to communicate. To communicate, it needed a unified informational matrix. And that matrix could be disrupted. Specialized research drones were deployed, each one a marvel of miniaturized scientific engineering. They didn't just collect data. They actively probed and analyzed the swarm's biological and computational structures. Quantum entanglement sensors created localized fields that interfered with the swarm's collective intelligence gathering. Major Armstrong reviewed the preliminary findings. We're not looking to destroy, he told the research team. We're looking to fundamentally alter their ability to function. The human approach was holistic. Military engagement was just one layer of a comprehensive strategy. Biological researchers worked alongside quantum physicists. Xenopsychologists collaborated with advanced computational experts. Every discipline contributed to a unified understanding of the threat. Dr. Chen demonstrated a breakthrough that left the Zorn delegation speechless. They had developed a method to create localized computational interference zones, areas where the swarm's collective intelligence would become temporarily fragmented. Imagine, he explained, a weapon that doesn't just kill. A weapon that makes an entire collective intelligence forget how to be a collective. As the research progressed, something became increasingly clear. The Void Swarm had encountered many civilizations, but it had never encountered anything like humans before. A species that didn't just fight to survive, but a species that fought to understand. The battlefield transformed into a canvas of quantum impossibility. Where 17 advanced civilizations had fallen, humanity wrote an entirely new language of conflict. The Void Swarm, a force that had consumed entire galactic cultures with mathematical precision, now encountered something it could not comprehend: adaptation. Admiral Catherine Blake watched from the command vessel, her steel-gray eyes tracking the complex engagement that defied every known principle of warfare. The human fleet moved like a living organism, each ship and drone a cell in a massive dynamic intelligence that rewrote the fundamental rules of combat in real time. Lieutenant Samantha Rodriguez's consciousness merged completely with her spacecraft's systems. She was no longer just a pilot. She was the living embodiment of human military innovation. Quantum communication networks allowed for tactical adjustments that happened faster than thought, transforming the entire battlefield into a fluid, ever-changing ecosystem of strategic possibility. Dr. Elena Martinez monitored the deeper layers of engagement from the research vessel. The initial strategies developed in Part 6 were now being put into full effect. Quantum interference fields created localized zones of computational chaos within the Void Swarm's collective intelligence. Specialized viral algorithms attacked the most fundamental communication networks that allowed the swarm to function as a unified entity. "We're not destroying," Martins explained to the stunned Zorn observers. "We're deconstructing their entire operational matrix." Major Jack Armstrong coordinated the multi-dimensional assault. Where traditional military doctrine would call for concentrated firepower, the human approach was surgically precise. Individual craft could redistribute energy, alter molecular structures, and redirect momentum with a fluidity that seemed to break the fundamental laws of physics. The Void Swarm's initial response was telling. For the first time in its galactic history, the collective found itself unable to predict or integrate its opponent. Human tactics were not just unpredictable, they were fundamentally incomprehensible. Specialized research drones continued to probe and analyze, each one a marvel of miniaturized scientific engineering. They didn't just collect data, they actively disrupted the swarm's ability to learn and adapt. Quantum entanglement sensors created complex interference patterns that fragmented the collective intelligence. Dr. Michael Chen watched as computational models revealed something extraordinary. The Void Swarm wasn't just losing. It was being systematically taken apart at the most fundamental level of its existence. "Look," he said to the Zorn tactical team, "we're not fighting a war. We're performing surgery on a galactic scale." The engagement became a dance of impossible complexity. Human craft would spontaneously reconfigure, creating tactical illusions that would fragment the swarm's predictive capabilities. Energy dissipation fields created zones of computational confusion. Adaptive camouflage systems made entire squadrons shift between visibility and near-complete invisibility. A Zorn senior analyst whispered in disbelief, "They're not just fighting. They're teaching the enemy how to be defeated." Admiral Blake's voice cut through the communication network. "Continue systemic disruption. Target their collective intelligence at every possible level." The human approach was holistic. Military engagement was just one layer of a comprehensive strategy. Biological researchers worked alongside quantum physicists. Xenopsychologists collaborated with advanced computational experts. Every discipline contributed to a unified understanding of the threat. As the battle reached its crescendo, something became terrifyingly clear to the watching galactic civilizations. This was not just a conflict. This was a complete reimagining of what warfare could be. The Void Swarm had consumed 17 advanced civilizations. Each time, it had learned. It had adapted. It had grown stronger. But it had never encountered a species that could learn faster than it could consume. Humanity wasn't just fighting. It was evolving in real time. The silence was more profound than any battle cry. Where the Void Swarm had once stretched across multiple star systems, now only scattered computational remnants remained. The human fleet returned not in triumph, but with a calculated precision that spoke volumes about their true nature. Admiral Catherine Blake stood on the observation deck of the command vessel, her reflection ghost-like against the starfield. Major Jack Armstrong approached, his cybernetic systems still interfacing with the ship's core networks. "Mission complete," he reported, though the words felt inadequate for what had just transpired. The Zorn diplomatic vessel that had initially brought the distress call now trailed behind the human fleet, its sensors still trying to comprehend the magnitude of what they had witnessed. 17 advanced civilizations had fallen to the Void Swarm. Humanity had not just defeated it, they had systematically dismantled its entire existential framework. Dr. Elena Martinez reviewed the final computational analysis. The victory wasn't about destruction. It was about understanding. Every moment of the conflict had been a research opportunity, a chance to learn and adapt at a speed that defied conventional understanding of warfare, intelligence, and survival. Lieutenant Samantha Rodriguez disconnected her neural interface, the slight disorientation a reminder of how deeply she had merged with the spacecraft during the conflict. Around her, the crew moved with a calm that would have seemed impossible to any outside observer. This was not a celebration. This was a return to baseline. The communication channels from various galactic civilizations began to light up. Requests for debriefing, demands for explanation, offers of alliance, thinly veiled threats. Humanity's response was characteristic in its simplicity. "We are not here to conquer," Admiral Blake stated during the first Galactic Council transmission. "We are here to ensure no civilization faces what the Void Swarm represented." Dr. Michael Chen prepared the initial research reports. They were not just military after-action reviews. They were comprehensive analyses that broke down the fundamental nature of the Void Swarm, a gift of knowledge to the entire galactic community. The Zorn delegation struggled to comprehend the human approach, where their civilization would have sought immediate political or territorial advantage. Humans offered something far more valuable: understanding. "We don't want territory," Chen explained to the bewildered Zorn senior diplomat. "We want to prevent this from happening again." The research vessels began distributing computational models, defensive strategies, and deep analytical frameworks that would fundamentally reshape galactic military doctrine. It wasn't about human superiority. It was about collective survival. Major Armstrong reviewed the final tactical summaries. The human approach had been so fundamentally different that it had created an entirely new paradigm of conflict resolution. They hadn't just fought a war. They had performed a complex, galaxy-wide systemic intervention. Lieutenant Rodriguez caught a moment of reflection with Dr. Martinez. "We changed everything," she said quietly. Martinez nodded. "We showed them that intelligence is not about power. It's about adaptation." The human fleet began to disperse, not as a conquering force, but as a distributed network of research and protection. Each vessel became a mobile research station, a potential first responder, a guardian of galactic stability. In the depths of the command vessel, Admiral Blake reviewed the final reports. The cost had been minimal. The potential future protection was immeasurable. 17 civilizations had fallen before humanity even entered the conflict. Now, every remaining civilization would have the tools to defend themselves. A Zorn senior analyst approached Blake, a mixture of awe and trepidation in his voice. "How," he asked, "did you transform a distress call into a fundamental restructuring of galactic defense?" Blake's response was characteristically understated. "We didn't see a threat. We saw a problem to be solved." As the fleet continued its journey, something fundamental had changed. The galaxy would never be the same, not because of human military might, but because of human curiosity, adaptability, and an unwavering commitment to understanding. Humanity had not just entered the galactic stage. They had rewritten the entire script.